Good day, listeners. Steve Breda here with the Management Blueprint Podcast. And my guest today is Andy Hite, the founder of Scaling Minds Coaching and Consulting, helping leaders navigate complexity, align their teams, and drive meaningful results. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hey Steve, thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, you've got a great story, you've got a great business, and let's get into it with my favorite question, which is what is your personal why and what are you doing to manifest it in your business?
Yeah, I love that question because most people can answer what is your why, right? They might reach for something, but I love the follow-up. What are you actually doing to manifest it? Because that's the part that a lot of people don't always consider,
Yeah.
right? I have a personal and a professional why. My personal why, I really landed on 7, 8 years ago. My personal why is to show my children that they can do and be and achieve anything they want. My kids are now 19, twin daughters, by the way. And as most parents do when they're younger, as they're growing up, we tell them these things. Hey, you can do anything, you could be anything, you can create anything. But I was confronted maybe 8 years ago with walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Mhm.
I had a corporate gig, and the thought and idea of starting this business was there. And for a while, I kind of put blinders on because, truthfully, as many of your listeners can imagine, I'm sure you've can imagine as well, leaving something that's steady and secure to start over, in your 40s is really, really scary. And most people, I talk to a lot of people, entrepreneurs, they're like, I can't do it, right? I have a family, I have obligations, I have bills. And I was confronted with that. I've been telling my kids this forever. Am I living it? Right? Am I actually going after the things that I want? And so I didn't want my words to be hollow. So I started walking the walk. I left that work and I started this business. And every day, as entrepreneurs know, can be a struggle as we're building. And so it's really just showing them, hey, if you're willing to put in the work, you can create anything, you can be anything. So that's a long-winded answer, Steve, of what my personal why is and how I get up every morning thinking about don't be a hypocrite, go do the work and show them.
I tell this to my kids as well that the biggest thing about being a father is that, or any parent, is that there's nowhere to hide. So you really have to vote, otherwise you are a hypocrite, and
Yep.
it's not always easy. It's not always easy. You have to really do the right thing, not just pretend you're doing the right thing because they're gonna see it.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't want my words to just be for them or hollow. So I was forced to kind of walk the walk. And thank God I did.
Yeah. Okay, well, I am sure that there is another motivation behind this. It's not just a show for the kids. You gotta love what you're doing. So tell me a little bit about what you do, and specifically, you developed a leadership operating system called Six Shifts. I'm very curious for you to talk about that and to share with our audience what it's about.
Sure, happy to. Just in terms of what we do, I started out as an executive coach, typically just working with CEOs, senior leaders. My passion is leadership. So I am on a mission to educate folks the difference between management, getting things done, moving things down the line, and leadership, which is more transformational. How do we take this thing and grow it into a bigger, better thing, something different? And so I really then started working with leadership teams, which is the bulk of what I do now, working with leadership teams, helping them coalesce as a team and work together. I kind of think of the work that we do like a leadership team mechanic. How do we tighten this, fix this, replace this so that we're a high performing machine and not just a group of 5, 6 men and women together to move the thing along. And so that's the work we do. We work with leadership teams, in small to mid cap organizations all across the country.
Yeah, that's lovely. So,
Yeah.
so why did you feel like you wanted to develop an operating system for leadership?
Well, a lot of it stemmed from me trying to organize my thoughts, right?
Mhm.
In working with teams, it became clear where the obstacles were and where the misalignments were. And so we would often work on those elements, but in the beginning had no real system to help teams move through, and also no real system for me to help, once we get here, then where do we go? And then where do we go? So it was just sort of born organically from the work that we were doing and what we were seeing teams struggle with. I just sort of codified all those thoughts and put it into something that I frankly can understand and clients can understand, so that they can see, oh, we're going to start here and then hopefully we'll end here.
Yeah. Okay. So it's basically you productized the system. So what are
Yeah.
these six shifts?
So the six shifts are starting with trust. This isn't really unique to me. Lencioni, Brene Brown, many of the bigger thought leaders in the leadership world are all in agreement that trust is the foundation for all teamwork, right? And we're not talking necessarily just transactional trust. Do I
Mhm.
trust that you're going to show up on time, or do I trust that, if I loan you something, you're going to return it? Really more frankly, vulnerability based trust, as Lencioni talks about. If we can, as Lencioni says, strip down emotionally buck naked in front of our peers and colleagues, they tend to trust us. They lean on us. They allow us to be candid with them and have really good, productive conversation without it being personal or without conflict being something that gets in our way. In fact, good conflict helps to build us and the team and the products and services that we deliver. And so we start, the first shift is building trust in the team so that we can stack the remaining five shifts on top of that. Shall I just move through them? Do you want
Yeah.
to
So
talk anything about them?
you talk about trust. So Lencioni has his pyramid and trust is the bottom. So I guess that's
Yeah.
the first gear,
That's
right?
the
First
first
gear.
gear. Oh, I like the
Yeah.
gear. Maybe we'll just move with the sort of car metaphor. The second is, without trust, we can't really have candid, open, truthful conversation. So the second shift is candor. How do we say the thing that is real in the moment to the person that can do something about it with care and respect, so that we can move our team and what we're up to along? So when we have trust, folks allow us to be much more candid. So the things that are unsaid or that we soften can
Mhm.
really be true in the moment. I was just working with a team 2 days ago in Austin, and been working with them for over 2 years. And we're still finding where, when we're in leadership team meetings, people are holding back. And if we hold back, we're missing opportunity. And the
Mhm.
thing that takes the hit are the results that really matter, right? Execution stalls, trust, and those things become diminished. It costs human energy.
Mhm.
So we really want to build the trust so that we can have the real, honest, candid conversations that need to happen, to move the organization and the team along. That's shift two.
Yep.
Once, candor reveals what is real, and the next shift is ownership. Then we decide what to do with it. Ownership is like accountability, showing up, saying, understanding what we're doing, how we're doing it, and what am I responsible for? What are you responsible for? So that nothing stalls, right? Ownership is also helping your peers hold their own ownership. It's so interesting, as I was talking to this team in Austin and many that I work with, it was clear as we were talking about candor that we got into like feedback. And what I learned is feedback only came from the top, from the CEO to each department. And what I
Mhm.
tried to help them see is, that in and of itself creates silos because there's very little collaboration between departments. And it
Yep.
also has the CEO become a bottleneck because everything moves through them and from them. And
Yep.
what I try and help folks see is, we should have horizontal leadership where we are also leading our peers.
Mm.
And sometimes that means holding them accountable, and that's okay. Having tough conversations and giving them feedback, and that's okay. But
Yep.
that's not the norm in most teams. when we talk about ownership, it's owning who we are and our role in the team. And sometimes that means having tough conversations horizontally, not just upwards to our boss or down to our direct reports.
Yeah. Yeah. So what this brings to mind for me is two ideas. One is peer accountability. I call it peer accountability,
Yeah.
where people are holding each other accountable. The second one is lateral leadership. I don't know if that's the right expression,
Yep.
but
I say horizontal, but that's exactly
yeah,
the same.
same thing. I think
Yep.
there's a book called Lateral Leadership, something like that. And the idea here is, how do you lead people who don't report to you, who don't have to follow you? How do you kind of compel them to do what needs to be done? And how do you convince them? How do you persuade them? That's a very important skill, especially in bigger organizations. Okay,
Yeah.
we talked about trust, we talked about candor, we talked about
Hmm.
ownership. So what's
Yeah.
next after ownership?
Yeah,
What's
those are the first three sort of foundational
Mhm.
behavioral leadership competencies. And
Mhm.
then we move over into empowerment, which, I'm sure you see in the work that you do. Oftentimes, and I mentioned it a bit ago, CEO can become a bottleneck because everything runs through them. I just been working with this group for 2 years and still discovering that so many things have to go through the CEO before they get executed or decided or move forward.
It's kind of hub and spoke system, when
That's right.
yeah, they all
Yeah.
have to go through. It's very inefficient. It drains the energy of the CEO, and they're not able to engage in the high level strategic stuff because they are pulled in
They're
day to day.
That's right. And we don't really leverage the genius of the rest of the C suite, for example, right? Because we're dependent on the CEO. So, what we want to do is empower each leader
Mm,
to own, back to ownership, own their department, their teams, their decisions, their results, so that the CEO can be a leader of that team and think strategically, but all other decisions, they're almost a little CEO of their own department.
mhm.
And we find when that happens, so much of the energy in the organization is freed up. It can be creative and isn't dependent on one or two or three people.
Love it. Okay, so that's the empowerment. And
Yep.
then what's the gear five, the fifth gear?
Yeah. So once we have, leaders who are really empowered to lead their departments, we need to make sure that we're all in alignment and moving in the same direction towards the same mission. So shift six or five rather is alignment, making sure that we know what we're doing, how we're doing it, and how we each play a role in the overall strategy of the organization. Oftentimes we find ourselves just coming in, moving day to day, just trying to get our work done, but we lose sight of what's the mission, what's the big vision, and
Mhm.
how do we align each person on the team to play their role in achieving the strategy that's in place.
Yeah. Okay, so we trust each other, we speak candidly, we own our functions, we hold each other accountable, we feel empowered, we get aligned.
Yeah.
Then what's next? What's the last gear?
And then we try and take all of that as leaders on that team. The last shift is leadership. Is how do we as individuals on this team take everything that we know and become that for our teams? How do we transfer all of this growth and knowledge throughout the entire organization? Which really becomes, how do we create culture shift, right?
Mm,
We can't do that until the leaders are living, eating, and breathing that vocabulary, that way of showing up, that type of leadership. So we build through trust, candor, ownership, empowerment, alignment, and then we take all of that and we filter it through the entire organization.
So what happens when a team implements, they put themselves into sixth gear? What happens
Yeah.
then? What's the result?
Well, then you really start to see big culture shifts
Mhm.
and the team functioning like a well-oiled machine. Let's go back to that car metaphor, right? Because we've released a lot of the friction points
Mhm.
that get us stuck. I also like to use the metaphor of say 5 leaders in a rowboat, but
Hmm.
before these 6 shifts, it's often like they all have an oar, but they're rowing in different directions. They're rowing in different tempos and speed. So we're moving, but we're not moving in unison. And when
Hmm.
we can align all of these shifts, we see that we really work together to move the organization with much more speed, power, and clarity so that we can achieve that mission.
Yeah, love it. So one of the things that we talked about, which really kind of was stuck with me, which is this idea that you have two types of leadership. You've got
Mhm.
self-leadership, you have organizational leadership. What is the difference between these two?
I love it. This is part of my professional why, Steve. Obviously, we think we know what organizational leadership is, or having a C-suite leader lead their team, and then that person is asking each person in the organization and team to be, to change, to grow and evolve. Well, we can't really ask that unless we're willing to do it ourselves, right? Lencioni, Simon Sinek all say leaders go first, right? And so self leadership is looking in the mirror and discovering, how do I need to grow as a leader? Where is my emotional intelligence not living up or being the example for my organization? How am I being driven by limited perspectives, the lack of curiosity, fear, doubt, pessimism? What's driving me that's getting in the way of my leadership so
Mhm.
that I can be a inspiration to the folks that I lead, both horizontally or laterally and down. So it all starts in the mirror. And that's the thing that I find most leaders are not thinking about. We're thinking about mostly management. How do we move this thing along? How do we keep going? How do we do it, make more money, more revenue, and make a bigger impact? But we're not looking in the mirror saying, how am I, as the captain of this ship, holding us back, creating friction points, not being and living up to the leader that
Mhm.
gets those results?
Mhm. So that's self-leadership, but that kind of chimes back to what we started talking about at the beginning of this conversation, that you're trying to model to your kids
Yeah.
what your values are, and essentially for you to be able to lead, i.e., be a role model for other people, which is kind of similar idea, you have to first do it yourself, right? That's self.
Yeah,
How can you lead others if you can't even do it for yourself, right? So first you have to
that's
do it for yourself, and then you're modeling the behavior for other people, how to lead themselves, and then how to lead others.
yeah. I often make parallels between leadership and parenting.
Mhm.
Some people cringe at that because we think of parenting as patting on the head and doing the thing and discipline. I actually see parenting, our job as a parent is to pull the best out of that kid, to
Mhm.
give them every opportunity to grow, to become the best version of themselves. And I think that's what our job is as leaders.
Yeah.
Simon Sinek says leadership is not being in charge, it's taking care of those in your charge.
Mhm.
Right. And so I see a lot of different parallels between really good, effective parenting and really good, effective leadership.
Yeah. No, no, no doubt. So how do you teach that to people? Is that the sixth shift? That's if they do that, then they become leaders, or is there something else?
So this is why I also do executive coaching one-on-one and the 6 shifts operating system. Typically, we're getting into the more of the self-leadership in executive coaching because we're looking at, how am I showing up as a team member on this team, as a leader in this organization, and where am I not being as effective? So oftentimes we're looking at, perhaps through a 360 evaluation, where is our leadership limited, what's creating it, and then how do we move beyond it, right? I was talking to a leader the other day through their 360, and one of the things that we really saw in their 360 is they're very protective. They can kind of put up a barrier to protect themselves, but that has an impact on the people in the organization. And so part of self leadership is first being aware that that's happening. And then how is that protection manifesting itself in real time and then practicing letting that guard down, for example, in this example of this leader. Right.
Mhm.
And so then it's like getting into the gym of life where, okay, we're going to practice not putting up this barrier and being open. And then it gets into trust, right? How do I trust that the people on my team will accept me if I am not protecting myself? How can I trust them that they won't judge me? How can I trust that they won't be punitive judgment if I do or say the wrong thing? Because that's why people protect themselves, right? So self leadership comes mainly through practice. How do we grow as leaders through practice? The gym of life, as I like to say it.
Yes. But then I'm wondering, don't people protect themselves because they're insecure?
But yes, all of it comes from
Yeah.
typically, not I'm not a therapist, not to get too much into therapy, but we're programmed in how we see and experience the world from a very, very young age. Our parents teach us, our communities, our siblings. And so oftentimes we get this view of the world that is not helpful for us in achieving what we want to achieve. And oftentimes it's insecurity, it's fear, it's fear of judgment, almost always, that kind of thing.
hmm So the gym of life is really a kind of a fake it till you can make it exercise. So you bring all these insecurities and you basically act as if you were not insecure, and at some point you're gonna gain the confidence because you are doing the things that you would be doing if you weren't insecure, and at some point you will be less insecure and perhaps
Yeah,
stop being insecure.
we Yeah, we approach it a little bit different. Like, rather than pretend it's not there and to pretend to be someone different, acknowledge that it's there, accept that it's there, and in spite of that, take the courageous and vulnerable leap to stretch outside of that limitation.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, if we just try and ignore it or say it doesn't exist, we're just powering over it, and we're not actually, not to get too psychological, but we're not actually working and healing whatever that part of us is that's insecure. I had a mentor once tell me, you can't leave a place until you've been there. And what I mean by that, it's kind of like we can't grow beyond something unless we actually acknowledge that it's there and this is who we are. And we want to move from who we are to a new version.
It's almost like Alcoholics Anonymous, that first you have to acknowledge you're an alcoholic and then you can start to cure yourself.
Yeah. Because the
Yeah,
proclamation at the very beginning is, I am so and so, and I'm alcoholic. It's
yeah,
just the admission of here's where I'm starting.
yeah. Okay, I like that. The gym of life, and how do you build those muscles so that you can let go of your insecurities and become more self-aware, and then step by step become a better leader over time. Love it. Love
Yeah, I like to use gym of life because oftentimes in this work, people think, oh, I'm starting here at A and I need to go to B. So I'm just going to make a shift and I should be at B. Right. And I
it.
try and tell people it doesn't happen that fast. You don't go into a gym wanting big biceps and do curls one day and expect that to happen. No, you got to practice. You got to put that thing under pressure for us to grow. So if we think about it like going into the gym of life, we see it as a practice rather
Mhm.
than just a switch to flip.
Yeah, love it. That's awesome. So this is how to build leadership in your organization. First, maybe build self-leadership by going to the gym of
Hmm.
life and working with an executive coach like yourself. And then when you're ready, you take it to your team and help your team become better leaders by building trust, candor, more ownership, empowerment, alignment on the team, and then roll it out to the whole organization. So that's the
Yeah,
leadership operating system.
yeah,
But it all starts with doing the exercises, like doing the push-ups, the leadership push
that's right.
in the morning. Awesome. So if someone would like to learn more about the Gym of Life, about the 6 shifts that you can take their organization through, where
Yeah.
should they go and where can they learn more?
Yeah, so we're in the midst of revamping our website. So a lot of it's been needed for 3 years. But scalingminds.com, you can find out more about the 6 shifts. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. And if any of your listeners are curious how their team is doing, I have a diagnostic that I'm happy to give any of your listeners to, especially like CEOs, to evaluate how their team is doing and where they might be very strong in one of these shifts and where they might need some growth in one or more of these shifts. Happy to share that.
Awesome. So if you feel like your team is not firing on all cylinders and you want to put them into sixth gear as leaders, implement the leadership operating system, then reach out to Andy Hite, who's the founder of Scaling Minds Coaching and Consulting. Andy, thanks for coming on the show and sharing your goodies, your wisdom with us. And if you enjoyed the show, make sure you follow us on YouTube, give us a rating on Apple Podcast, check out our LinkedIn website so that you can watch short videos of all these episodes that we're sharing here. Andy, thanks for coming and thank you for
Hey,
listening.
thanks for having me, Steve. I really appreciate it.